Hamas is proving that they wanted the fighting the whole time as well, when they should have known very early on within the first few months, there's no possible way we win this, but they kept those hostages the whole time. I mean, you can't have somebody do a big terrorisms on you and then agree that they could be a permanent government and then you just go back to normal.
Again, my argument is simply that they are the obstacle to peace, and they could have had peace, but they don't want that peace. They want to destroy the Gaza Strip, get them out of there, and on top of that, start wars with everybody else. This is a rogue state, dude. Like, they're doing whatever they want, and then they just bombed Qatar last week. So we have all these things that happened with October 7th. And the other thing also that's important is that there was a stand-down order, and they could have got the hostages back on October 10th. But they chose not to do that because...
I don't think there was a stand-down order. That's never been proven. And getting the hostages back, saying that Hamas is willing to give the hostages back if you go away is the most joke thing in the world. You can't do a huge terrorism, capture 200 people, and then give the 200 people back and end the war. Nobody would ever agree to that ever. That's an insane demand.
That's fair. That's fair. And I knew you were going to say that. But here's the difference, right? So here's the thing. The debate is, who is the bigger obstacle to peace? Israel could have gotten all their hostages back on the 10th. What would have happened was for them not invading the Gaza Strip. Now, here's the thing. Normally, I see what you're saying. Hey, well, they conducted a terrorist attack. You know, how dare they do this and then Israel not respond? That would make them look weak. Well, here's the difference. Israel has a fantastic intelligence service, okay? The Mossad, mbed, Unit 8200, Amman. These guys ran a pager operation for 10 years. They did Operation Rising Lion, where they had Mossad assets in the back line in Iran. They have the ability to conduct sophisticated operations where they can easily dismantle Hamas. And here's the other thing too. They did this against Hezbollah and they did this against the IRGC. Two militaries that are superior to Hamas. You telling me that you couldn't run special operations or do some type of intel operation where you have a bunch of collaborators in Gaza Strip and taking them out? I mean, they killed Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, Iran. So I don't want to hear anything about like, oh, well, you know, they conduct their terrorist attack. Well, here's the thing. Who's the bigger obstacle to peace? I would argue it's the Israelis, because how many people have died because they wanted to go into the Gaza Strip? And they could get the hostages back at any time, because this is what I was going to answer your question before. You asked me, hey, why don't they release the hostages? Here's your answer. They will release the hostages. Here's the problem. Netanyahu does not want to do a final ceasefire because Hamas will give them the hostages back, but they want a permanent ceasefire and withdrawal of all troops. Israel does not want to do that because they want to occupy the Strip. It's about getting them out of there from the first place. So again...
Sure, but I mean, like, you acknowledge that them keeping hostages, that is a war crime, right?
Sure, but Israel's committing war crimes all the time. How many hostages does Israel have?
That's fine.
11,000.
Well, prisoners of war are not necessarily the same as hostages, unless you're counting every single person who's been...
They're there without charge. They're being Destiny. Like, they're literally... They protest...
That's a whole other thing. But the reality is that, like, if you're prisoners, that is a war crime, sure. But the...
and they protest for it, so they can continue to do it.
Sure. If Hamas were to release the hostages, though, the support for Israel doing any kind of war, I think, in the Gaza Strip, at least a while ago, probably would have collapsed internationally, what little support they had. And then domestically, I think there probably would have been major upheaval as well. If all the hostages were released, I think Israel would have a much harder time justifying that war to its citizens.
They would keep fighting, dude. Like, because the reality is that they...
Well, they'll only fight as long as they have the domestic support for it. But I think the domestic support for that fighting would collapse pretty fast if, like, all the hostages were released and now you're just on an infinite war in Gaza.
The United States would continue to support them. Even the UK would continue to support them.
Yeah, Stephen, I don't really think the domestic support will falter if the hostages come back. You've got to remember that the people who are supporting him, Netanyahu's supporters, are on the not on the far right, but are the people that want Hamas to be destroyed. They want a new age.
Sure, I agree, but you guys have like a crazy coalition government with like 20 different parties that are holding together Netanyahu's majority, right? I think that if all of the hostages are released, there's absolutely a decent chunk of the Israeli population that would want to see a war in Gaza until everything is done. But I think it would be a lot harder, like Israel, because even today they still keep saying that, what is it, 20 or 40 hostages left? They still keep citing these hostages as like a reason, and they have to give that as like their moral front, I think, internationally and to their own people.
Sure.
I don't know, but maybe today, maybe they could, but I know like 6 months ago, if Hamas would have just released all the hostages, I think Israel would have
been different.
Yeah, I think they would have a really hard time going. I don't know today. I feel like because they couldn't bring up the hostage thing ever anymore, and now they're just on a war against Hamas, and however many people die, and they can't even put the hostages on the other side of the
Well, here's the thing. Like, they never cared about the hostages. That's my point, is that, once again, an obstacle to peace. They could have got the hostages back on the 10th, had them all back safe, run a special operation.
I don't disagree with this, but both sides wanted the war to happen. Hamas could have just released the hostages in the beginning, and then it would have been really hard for Israel to continue. And Israel could have done more to get the hostages, but Israel's happy for the hostages to be there because they get to go disassemble
and I'll
Hamas
tell you
as
why.
much as they want.
No, because if they gave the hostages up, that would have taken the only leverage they have. Here's the thing: the Israelis are superior.
They have no leverage. No, you're wrong. That's the most absurd belief. You think they have leverage? You think that Hamas has leverage over the Israeli government?
I'm saying no, they don't. I said it's the only leverage they have.
It's not leverage. That's, if anything, it's a counter leverage. That's what's giving Israel the cause for war as much as they have. You think Israel? Because you just said it yourself that they don't give about the hostages.
Again,
I think that they're a very distant second place.
They don't, and they're proving that. And they're proving that right now with what's going on.
But Hamas is proving that they wanted the fighting the whole time as well. When they should have known very early on within the first few months, there's no possible way we win this. But they kept those hostages the whole time because they want the conflict to continue.
Well, no. I told you, October 10th, they were willing to give them back. The Israelis said no. That's a big deal.
Yeah, but the Israelis were never gonna. I mean, you can't have somebody do a big terrorisms on you and then agree that they can be a permanent government, and then you just go back to normal. There was no way that was ever gonna be. Obviously, right?
Well, yeah, but here's the thing: like, they have the capability of destroying them from the inside out. We've seen them do it with Hezbollah. They see them do it with IRGC. We've seen them do it with the Houthis. What, dude? Did you not see the Patriot attack? You know they had bombs in those Patriots for 10 years.
Yeah, but that's a lot different than disassemble. First of all, no, I don't know. I don't think they had bombs on the Patriots.
It was in for 10 years. New York Times reported. You can look it up. 10 years. 10 years.
Sure. Okay. Number two, I think taking apart the entirety of Hamas, which is also the government of Gaza, leads to a lot more problems than attacking, the military, part or segment or thing of like Hezbollah. Right. Like, I think that if Israel would have done a pager attack on Hamas to kill the government figures, the policing, the military, everything else, like the whole Gaza Strip would collapse. And then what do they do after that?
Well, they could do what they're trying to do now, which is basically what the point is. Here's the bottom line.
What do they do? What do they do after Gaza collapses? If they were to do the same type of huge attack and destroy all of Hamas, the legitimate government of the Gaza Strip, what is Israel supposed to do after that?
They can get another government in there, or do what they always want to do, which is ethnically cleanse.
How?
They want ethnically cleanse anyway. Here's the thing. Again, my argument is simply that they are the obstacle to peace, and they could have had peace, but they don't want that peace. They want to destroy the Gaza Strip, get them out of there, and on top of that, start wars with everybody else. They literally started a war with Hezbollah. They bombed the Houthis.
Hezbollah's been at war with Israel. It's not like they just randomly started that. What do you mean? These guys have been fighting forever.
Yeah, no, of course.
Shooting rockets after October 7th.
They did the Patriot attack. They invaded southern Lebanon. They said they were going to make it all the way into Beirut. They didn't do that. Then they went ahead and obviously conducted that attack, and then that set up the stage for Syria to be dethroned and destabilized. And then obviously they did Operation Rising Lion in the middle of peace negotiations. Like, this is a rogue state, dude. Like, they're doing whatever they want. And then they just bombed Qatar last week or 2 weeks ago. Like, they are absolutely the biggest obstacle to peace in the Middle East. Israel is the main antagonizer of almost every modern conflict.
Why do you think that most of the people in the Middle East, say like Syria and Iran and maybe Iraq, generally support Israel? Like Egypt, all the Gulf states?
Because they're cucked by the United States. That's why.
Do you think that if Saudi Arabia, the rest of the Gulf states, and Egypt could choose, who do we want to lead the Middle East going forward? The Ayatollah or the Knesset or Jerusalem or Israel? Who would they choose? Would they choose Iran or would they choose Israel?
Well, preferably they'd want Saudi Arabia to do it.
Saudi Arabia is like, yeah. Wait, let's look to Saudi Arabia. Who would Saudi Arabia rather be partners with? Iran or Israel? Israel. Everybody would choose Israel. This is a country that's fought its way to, yeah.
No, because here's the thing you got to remember. Yes, maybe the politicians might say, you know what, yeah, politically it'd be easier for us to deal with Israel. But the reality is the people of the land would have a serious problem with that. This is why Saudi Arabia is so scared to recognize Israel. And a lot of these Arab countries are scared because they look at it like, yo, that's like we have our Palestinian brothers over there being killed or whatever. The Muslim world would have a problem with that. So what I think is, and here's the other thing too, a lot of people don't know this, Iran and Saudi Arabia are exercising diplomacy now. They started recognizing each other in 2023. They've done.
Yeah, they might be on the path to that, but they have a highly contentious history with each other, where Iran has been like directly attacking now, or not now, but I think Trump's first presidency, they were attacking Saudi Arabian refineries with drone attacks for the first time ever, I think in 2019.
Yes, you're 100% right.
So they might be working their way towards like peace now.
No, they already got peace going. So since 2022 or 2023, they've been formalizing negotiations and they recognize each other. They literally, their militaries do flight simulations together. There's peace between the two now. I'm telling you, Israel is the biggest problem in the Middle East, and it is the main antagonizer for all the wars in the Middle East. Because before Israel's creation, we didn't really have a beef in the Middle East like that, dude. Not only that, here's another one.
Hold on, the United States wasn't even like enough of a foreign power to do anything in the Middle East. What do you mean?
I would argue we were at the pinnacle of power after World War II. And we didn't have beef with the Middle East.
Israel didn't exist until World War II.
Precisely. And they're the ones that started the problems.
No, but the United States had I don't think the United States cared or had anything to do with conflict, really, with the rest of the world. Even World War I, we were kind of involved with. Prior to that, we were doing our own thing.
I mean, we're involved in World War II, but like, Israel has extended the war because if you look at a lot of the modern wars we have now, it's been for the benefit of Israel, especially this war on terror. It's a whole bunch of bullshit. And here's the other thing, too, I want to say with Iran, right? They always say Iran's the boogeyman and all these other problems, right? The only reason Iran is fighting so hard to get a nuclear bomb now, especially, is because we pushed them to do that because of Israel's reckless foreign policy, where they're bombing Iran, they're attacking Iran all the time. We pulled out the JCPOA. Why do we pull out the JCPOA? Because Mike Pompeo.
Are you implying that there was no conflict in the Middle East, all the conflict that happened in Yemen with Egypt in like the 60s had nothing to do with Israel. The Iraq-Iran war didn't have anything to do with Israel. The Afghanistan civil war, I don't think had anything to do with Israel. Turkey and all of their revolution to create themselves as their own state in the late 1910s or whatever, 1920s, had nothing to do with Israel. Like all of the stuff that happens across like Northern Africa, it doesn't have anything to do with Israel. Like all these places were violent in conflict places, especially after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire.
We have an interventionist foreign policy because of Israel, and we have destabilized, assisted, or done coups in so many different places all across the Middle East because of Israel.
Did Israel
Yes,
make us go
100%.
to South America and coup all the countries that were involved in South America?
I'm talking about the Middle East. Like, for example,
yeah, but
let's talk about Iran.
Wait. You can't just say they made us do it in the Middle East and that's the only reason we did it. But we also did it in Taiwan, or not Taiwan, I'm sorry. We did it in Korea. We did it in Vietnam. We've done it in how many countries in South America and Cuba? Like, it seems like we kind of did that everywhere in the Cold War. Everybody was doing that everywhere in the Cold War. The Soviets versus the U.S. No?
Sure, but remember, the debate is who is the bigger obstacle to peace. I'm saying that Israel is a bigger obstacle to peace than Palestine or any of these Arab countries because Israel's foreign policy is to literally their motto is rise up and kill them first. And then don't forget with Iran.
So that's not Israel's I don't even know what that means.
That is
number one.
That is one of their mottos. Rise up and kill them first.
Okay, I'm not sure where that comes from, what that means. But for Iran, like Iran is also has been fighting with and killing troops in the Middle East as well. Like post.
No. We okay. Operation Ajax. What did we do? We got rid of Mogadishu, right? They're a democratically elected leader.
What does that have to do with Israel?
Israel was involved with us, the Brits.
No, you're dead wrong.
Okay.
We did that on behalf of the British because the Brits wanted their oil refineries, and because he was going to. I have
Operation Ajax.
Iran was going. Iran, yes, but that was because Iran was going to nationalize all of their oil refineries, and Britain didn't want to lose their investment there.
Of course,
that was
and the Israelis were involved in helping us with that.
I don't know how they might have been involved in helping. Israel wanted to help everybody in the West, yeah, but we did it because of Britain. If Israel didn't exist, we would have still done that same thing.
Well, here's the thing. Yes, we did it to help Britain, but at the same time, we also what was one of the first things that Iran did when the Shah came in after him getting thrown out, or once the Shah came to power, he recognized Israel. I think he was the first country in the Middle East to recognize Israel.
What is that? How does that prove any point?
What I'm trying to say here is that Israel has either been directly involved in or one of the main precipitators of us creating this interventionist foreign policy all across the Middle East.
Are you saying that Israel had some interest, that was a great boon to Israel, that Iran recognized them as a country?
100%.
Absolutely not.
They were the first country in the Middle East to recognize them. A big one, too. That has a bunch of energy. That's
Iran
huge.
was barely even considered the Middle East at that point. This was they were a non-player in World War II. What do you mean? What was Iran doing in the 40s and 50s? Literally nothing. People are trekking through here. Iran,
they had a lot of oil, enough where we had to run a coup. They were a player. But that
was not that had nothing to do with Israel. That wasn't helping Israel. Israel's main conflict at that point. If you do history of Israel, you don't hear anything about Iran. Iran is not involved in any of these conflicts or helping much at all until you get to 2000s.
Okay, Israel's primary arch nemesis the entire time has always been Iran. Once they got rid of Saddam, they've been fighting like hell to get rid of Iran. That's why they've been trying to get us to bomb them.
Pulling out post 2000s.
Okay.
You just said that Iran recognizing Israel was some great help to Israel. Israel's main enemies were Egypt and Syria.
Well, that's after we destabilized Iran with Operation Ajax, because that was a benefit to the Brits and to the Israelis. Obviously, it benefited multiple people, but again, for us to sit here and
Israel wasn't hurt by Iran. It didn't help them at all, or hurt
it
them.
It definitely helped them. It was one of the first countries in the region to recognize them. It was the first one actually in the region.
Israel. What did that help with? It didn't help them in the Suez Crisis. It didn't help them in '67 with the Six-Day War. It didn't help them in '73 with Yom Kippur.
No, it definitely did help them to have a country in the region recognize them.
How did it help them?
Well, for one, since the Brits control their oil, that the Israelis were able to benefit from that, because that was the big reason why they even conducted Operation Ajax, because Mogadishu wanted to go ahead and actually nationalize the oil, and the Brits were like, hell no, we want to make a bunch of money. The Israelis benefited from that significantly, right?
For how? From a cash transfer? Or from...
No, because what ended up happening was Iran became a vessel state for the West, and then Israel benefits from anything that we do that's a vessel of the West. Israel benefits because they're one of our main allies over there.
I don't agree with this. But.
You can look at Operation Ajax was conducted by who? The U.S., Brits, and the Israelis. Why? Because there was an enormous benefit to the Israelis for being involved
No,
in
you're
that.
dead wrong. It wasn't. It was for the Brits. It was to prevent all of their oil companies from being taken over and nationalized by the country. That was the Brits begged the United States to help in that intervention.
Of course,
there.
and then the Israelis assisted as well. But the Israelis benefited
I don't know what the
too.
Israeli assistant was.
Because they
in
got,
that case, so did France. So did every single country in the West
We're
benefited, I
getting
guess.
slightly off the topic. Should we head back?
and then also again, the argument is that the Israelis are one of the biggest obstacles to peace. Another thing, they were heavily involved in us pulling out of the JCPOA, aka the Iran nuclear deal. I think that was a good deal that was going to have Iran be in a position where we can monitor what they're doing. We had inspectors in there. We would stop them from getting a nuclear weapon. Actually, it was to Israel's benefit because Israel would be the only nuclear power in the region. But what did Israel do? Mike Pompeo's a cuck. He's owned by the... He tells Trump, hey, we got to pull out of this thing. Trump pulls out by advice of him. He's the Secretary of State at the time. He puts the IRGC on a terrorist watch list in 2019, and then bam, now the diplomacy that we had worked for multiple years under the Obama administration, gone. And why was that? Because of enormous pressure from the Israel lobby.
Yeah, I think pulling out of the JCPOA was horrible. The Iranian nuclear deal was bad. I don't think we should have done it. But if Israel has so much control that they were able to make us pull out of that deal, why didn't they have enough control to make us not enter the deal in the first place with Obama?
Because Obama had a spine against the Israelis? But Benjamin Netanyahu...
if they have a spine, if a spine is all it takes, then you have no conspiracy. Then there's no way they can control it. All you need is a little bit of a spine, and now you can't do anything. Like you said before, they were assassinating people like JFK or whatever in order to keep them on board with their nuclear program and shit. And now you're saying that all you need is a spine, and now you can create one of the worst... Well, I think it was a great deal, but Saudi Arabia and Israel both hated it. They felt like they got stabbed in the back by the United States, but both. I thought that was a great deal. But to say that Obama can resist Israel with just having a spine means that Israel has no power or could do anything for US foreign policy.
Here's the thing. Like, Netanyahu came to the United States and literally like challenged the sitting president of the United States and addressed our house, talking about how the JCPOA was a bad deal, blah, blah, blah. He
got caught.
He rallied.
Came from it.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Once Trump came in, what happened? Boom.
Yeah, because Trump is a cuck, not because he got controlled by Israel. Trump is just
yeah, well, here's the thing. That proves my point that the Trump administration, this is my biggest criticism of Trump. He is owned by the Adelsons. He's owned by the... So
well, we can say that. I don't think he's owned. I think he sees an easy conflict and he takes it because he knows that they're always going to win. And old people like Israel. I don't think you need any conspiracy there to explain shit.
I mean, again, Obama stood up to the lobby more than Trump did. So when Trump came in, one of the first things he did was disband the plan, got Mike Pompeo in. Pompeo was a hardcore Zionist owned by the lobby. He was the main guy in his ear telling him, hey, we need to get out of this thing. And then he designated the IRGC on the terrorist on the FTO list. So, and then they put the crazy sanctions on him too.
Trump is just like a mega cuck for Israel, right? Nobody's forcing Trump to put, who was it? Huckabee as our ambassador to Israel now. Like Trump is still cucking out to Israel now. He doesn't need the money anymore. He's got a billion other scams he's running in the U.S.
Oh yeah, but that's my point. Once again, Israel, the debate is...
How is it that every time they support them and every time they don't support him, it's like always somehow fits your theory? Like,
no.
We either Obama has a spine and then Trump was forced and Trump won, but then he does the exact same thing in Trump 2, even though he's not forced in Trump 2. Like every single thing can be explained by the same like conspiracy.
No,
like, they did a secret paper or they wrote the clean break memo in order to get the U.S. to go to war, but it didn't work or do anything. So then they had to fabricate the anthrax thing. Well, why would they even write the memo? They should just fabricate the anthrax thing. Like every single thing can always be explained by whatever conspiracy. Like there's no way I can't even falsify any of it. Like,
okay, so here's the thing. Okay, number one, the argument is who is a bigger barrier to peace? My argument is that is the Israelis, and I'm using the angle of them pulling out the JCPOA. Now, with that said,
the argument is who's a bigger detriment to peace between Israel and the Palestinians?
Yes,
right. The Palestinians can't be a detriment to peace with the Iranians. That's not even relevant.
Right? Yes, it is.
Israel.
Yes, it is because the Iranians back Hamas and back the Palestinians. So yes, it is a detriment to peace. So what I'm saying is,
but they only back the Palestinians because they don't like Israel. They don't give a with the Palestinians. They just do it because they're trying to fight with Israel and Saudi Arabia and the United States. Because
Israel is a rogue state that has a nuclear weapon. So obviously the acts of resistance was created to insulate themselves and protect themselves.
How is Israel more of a rogue state than? Is it more of a rogue state than Yemen?
It's more of a rogue. You could make the argument. I think Israel is more of a rogue state than Iran. It's more of a rogue state than Iran.
How?
Iran was a part of the JCPOA. It was a part of the International Non-Proliferation Treaty. They actually had inspectors come in. Israel has a nuclear bomb that's illegal that they stole from us.
So having a nuclear bomb makes you a rogue state? Isn't that
100%.
The exact opposite?
An unacknowledged nuclear program that you stole? 100%.
Okay, no, I feel like that every other person on the planet would say that is the exact opposite. A rogue state having a nuclear bomb seems like the worst possible thing ever. I think that if they were a rogue state, they would have used it or something, right?
Dude.
That's definitionally like a rogue state is one that can't be controlled or...
Destiny. They bombed Qatar like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
That is one of our main allies with the biggest military base. You know how crazy that is that they bombed one of our allies?
It's people, everybody bombs people. Like, Iran has bombed Saudi Arabia. Like, what do you mean?
On,
like,
Destiny.
they bomb each other over there. What do you mean?
Destiny, we give them a lot of their aid. We give them billions upon billions of dollars. I think this year alone, we've given them like $16 billion. And they bombed Qatar. Qatar has the biggest military base, U.S. military base there. That is one of our close allies. They are the intermediary to try to stop this war, and they still bomb them. I think that Israel is a bigger rogue state because they assassinate negotiators. They do clandestine operations. They do false flags. They undermine us all the time as their main person. Did you know that back in the Bush era that they had tried to get a false flag? Mossad operatives literally pretended to be CIA operatives, and they tried to arm the Jundallaha to conduct a terrorist attack in Tehran at the end of the Bush administration. This is back like 2007, 2008. And obviously the Iranians foiled the plan, but then they found out that Jundallaha was actually being supported by Mossad, and they figured it out, but they were planning to be CIA guys. Like, the Israelis constantly do bullshit in the Middle East and try to get us involved in it. And Bush knew about this.
But everybody does bullshit in the Middle East. And to say Bush knew about this, Bush was literally the one that put Iran on the axis of evil. The IRGC,
he didn't want to go to war with them.
No, but we were already at war with them largely, right? Like the Iran and the Quds Force have been doing tons of intervention in Iraq. Like arguably a lot of the deaths that happened there were a result literally of foreign Iranian operatives. A lot of what was going on in Syria was a result of, like assistance from Iranian foreign operatives, or the money or the resources or the training that they would send to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Like, yeah, Iran does shit all across the Middle East. They're like the fucking America or Russia.
But the difference is that we don't give billions of dollars in aid to Iran. We give it to Israel. They need to be beholden to us, but they're a rogue state that does reckless stuff. I mean, the fact that they bombed
they
Qatar
probably are generally.
is wild.
Now, I'm not going to say prior to Trump too. I don't know how wild it necessarily is. It's kind of wild. But the issue we have right now is that we have the president doesn't know anything about the Middle East, so he doesn't give anything that happens there. That's our big deal now. So now you're seeing people act crazy.
Yeah, he's too controlled by is the problem.
He's not controlled by the.
He's
that's the issue.
Retarded on some things.
On all things.
On the Middle East, yes, 100% cucked and owned by them boys.
Okay. I think that
just admit that the Israelis are the main problem, bro. Just admit it, and I'm happy. All right,
but they're not though.
They're the
biggest
biggest
you're retarded
obstacle.
if you think like, oh, who would I rather have run the Middle East? Like, there's a reason why most of the Middle Eastern leadership is totally fine with Israel, even if the Arab Street, is not the, it doesn't have the nicest thing to say about the Mediterranean, right? Most of the Arab leadership is like, you know what? I think I'd rather Israel be in charge of this shit than Iran. Are you serious? Then Assad. Then fight like these are like the worst motherfuckers in the world.
Assad's out of there.
He is now, yeah. Or Saddam Hussein. Like, these are the worst people in the world.
These guys are out of there.
The Houthi family. These are the worst people. The Muslim Brotherhood in Cairo. These are the worst.
Here's the
and
thing.
you're like, God, Israel is a rogue state. They're fucking terrible and horrible. You would living in any one of these places. Like every
that's
fucking
fine.
person would rather live in Egypt, or not in Egypt, in Israel. Like Arabs would rather live in Israel. Arabs who live in Israel do better than Arabs living in any of these surrounding.
But hold on,
Destiny.
That's not the argument. The argument is simply, remember, the debate is who is the bigger obstacle to peace. I'm saying the Israelis are.
I understand that's the debate is, but you're making about the entire Middle East. We're talking about the biggest obstacles to peace between Palestinians and the Israelis.
Yes,
we're talking about the broader Middle Eastern region. But I'm saying that the broader Middle Eastern region, Palestinians aren't even going to have like any influence on this, of course.
No, it does.
Between the Palestinians and the Israelis, the Palestinians will never settle for peace with the Israelis because they always feel like they can get more, so they have no incentive to do it. At this point, Israelis are radicalized so much that they figure Palestinians don't ever want peace, so they're going to keep fighting with them. And that's where we're going to go indefinitely until some international leader takes an interest in it and pushes for it.
The Israelis illegally occupy them. Okay, they're in apartheid. They don't have any representation. They're being occupied by a foreign government. They have no rights, nothing. So yeah, of course they're going to resist. And according to international law, they have the right to resist because what Israel is doing is illegal. Everything about Israel is illegal. The settlements, the way the country came as a formation, everything about it, according to international law, is illegal. And this is why
that's what all the Palestinians think, and that's why they'll never settle for peace because they think it's all illegal and it doesn't count. And
here's the other thing too. And the Israelis don't even want to make it right and come to some type of two-state solution or bring them in
nobody
to a
wants a
one-state
solution. Nobody knows what a two-state solution would look like. And a one-state solution, nobody would agree with that either.
But
because that includes infinite right of return.
But my point is, who is the obstacle to peace? It is the Israelis, because since they don't want to solve the Palestinian question, that creates all the other conflicts. The Palestinians don't want to solve it
either, though.
No,
what do the Palestinians want? Really, what do the Palestinians want?
Rights to self-determination and sovereignty.
What does that mean?
That's it.
You can't speak in riddles. Sovereignty and right to self-determination, what does that mean?
Having a citizenship, being able to not be an apartheid state where they're second-class citizens.
Return. What do you do with the 5 to 7 million Palestinian refugees?
Okay, look.
Nobody wants to talk about that. That's one of the huge issues that the Palestinians
I didn't say the right of return. I didn't say the right of return.
You didn't, but that's what comes up all the time. That's one of the huge things.
No.
Even that you brought up the Arab peace resolutions or whatever before, that's a huge
No, that's not. Here's the thing. Most of the Palestinians now understand that that's probably not going to happen. A two-state solution with sovereignty and their own ability to have self-determination, which means their own government, their own military, their own airspace, their own police.
No Palestinian has ever given up any right of return ever. No Palestinian leadership has ever put on paper the number of right of return refugees that would come back. That's never happened. That's great for you to say that, but they've never acknowledged that.
Well, here's the thing. They won't even give them the right to self-determination. So how the hell are they going to even get a
These are flower
return?
words. I mean nothing. What right of self-determination?
Okay.
This doesn't mean anything.
It's simple, Destiny. Being able to govern themselves and being able to have their own
Hamas government themselves.
No,
the Palestinian Authority governs itself.
With their own military, where they're not occupied, where they have their own airspace, they have their own water, their food and the power isn't controlled by the Israelis, where they can turn it off at any single time. That's why we got genocide going on with famine, because the Israelis control everything. That proves my point that they're absolutely occupied, the fact that they're starving them. So having their own sovereignty, Destiny, you're smart. You know what that means. Being able to have their own real country. That's what it comes down to.
Sure, where's the leader that's negotiating for that? This doesn't exist.
They've been trying and they don't give it to them.
Who? When?
The Oslo Accords. The Oslo Accords was the closest to that, and they killed the guy that set it up, bro. And the Oslo Accords was simply the framework. We didn't even get to that point yet. But they've killed them. That's how much the Israelis don't want to have peace. They're the biggest sabotagers to peace. And everybody in the international community would agree with me. This is why nobody likes Israel. And literally, today, why do you think the Brits and the Australians and the Canadians recognize the Palestinian state? Because they understand that this is some bullshit that Israel's been doing for 70, 80 years. They know it's bullshit.
Talk is cheap. Yeah, that's fine. They can say what they want, but at the end of the day, nobody is like intervening to do anything. It's all of this is just to make people feel good about themselves. Is why Canada invented a new definition of genocide to say that they were genociding their natives so they could feel good about themselves, because it's a pat on the back.
No,
but at the end of the day, none of these people are doing anything to advance any of the causes.
Every genocide expert, every scholar is coming out saying that this is a genocide, because it doesn't. You even if you eliminate the people in part,
that's fine. It's a
genocide.
You can say that. Look. Okay, let's say that. Now, how much closer are we to figuring out the solution? None. If anything, now you're further away. Why would you make a peaceful solution with a person who's genociding you?
I would argue
doing is infinitely incentivizing both sides to fight forever, and they will continue to fight. Why would you make peace with somebody who's apartheiding you, genociding you, ethnic cleansing you, starvationing you? Like what?
Well, here's the thing: Israel is losing the support of the international community. America
that
is starting
to matter to you. Wait,
well,
how can they lose that? Wait. How can they lose the
matter.
support? I thought you said they control everything with all the Israeli money and all the Israeli propaganda.
You're right. They do control everything, but that support is starting to wane. People on the left already, your entire party.
Wait, how can it wane if they're controlling it all with money and propaganda?
Okay, can I explain? So for a very long time, talking about power Zionism was banned on social media platforms. We all know this. However, the October 7th attacks and the current genocide going on has brought it to the forefront of conversation. Now that it's at the forefront of conversation, we got people on the left condemning what Israel's doing. This is a topic that the left typically didn't really know about or care too much about unless they were really vested in Middle Eastern foreign policy.
I understand what you're saying. You're just explaining reality now. But before this, apparently Israel controlled all of reality. So what is the point of all the propaganda and the money and the Adelsons and everybody else if they can't actually control any of the media?
No. Well, here's the thing. They can't control the media anymore because we don't have to deal with Fox News and CNN anymore. Now we got independent media. People are coming out saying like, yo,
you
this
literally
is bullshit.
Just said that we couldn't talk about this on independent media. I thought, don't you guys complain about the ADL controlling YouTube policy and Facebook policy and Twitter policy and everything else?
Yes.
So how do they lose that if they control it all?
Sure, I'll explain that. Because before, if you talked about any of these topics before, the ADL, SPLC would target you immediately. But now everyone, people on both the right and on the left, it used to be the right that they would target when they would talk about this shit. They would ban me, demonetize me, ban Nick Fuentes, etc. But guess what? Now Hassan's talking about it every single day. Now Kyle Kulinski's talking about it all the time. Now guys on the left are talking about it. And then other people are talking about it on TikTok. TikTok was another thing that they didn't see coming. So everybody from different political angles are seeing what Israel's doing, say this is bullshit. Well, guess what? The ADL can't ban everybody. So now that it's coming out, what Israel's doing, and the world is waking up, now this has been brought to the forefront. And this is why Israel's getting absolutely decimated in the press. That's why Netanyahu's running around doing all these stupid-ass softball interviews, but won't do an interview with someone that's going to ask him real questions because he knows he's conducting a genocide. He obviously, everybody feels like there was a stand-down order. How the hell did the IDF take 6 hours to respond? We know the Hannibal Directive was activated on that day. We know that they went ahead and sabotaged a bunch of shit that it could have included peace. It included getting their hostages back on October 10th. So he doesn't want to do any real interviews. Israel's getting cooked, and they're losing support. And the United States is waning support on them right now as well. Even Trump admitted, damn, it's really tough to defend Israel nowadays.